I wasn't going to talk about this until I get a better idea on what's going on with the whole Sasha and Naomi thing. And there's a lot coming out, and it doesn't really look good. It doesn't look good for Sasha and Naomi because, of course, people are assuming that Sasha's a diva and Naomi's being taken advantage of. But let's be honest. Who fired the first shot? In my humble opinion, it was the company they worked for. We didn't even have to know anything about this, but they decided to put a statement on Twitter about what they've done. Now, there are conflicting stories from what I've heard from Wrestle Talk. There are some conflicting stories saying that from a friend of Naomi's that they left before the script was actually turned in at 5 p.m. And now I'm hearing other statements that they actually walked out before the show. They walked out when the show was actually airing. At this point, in my opinion, WWE is definitely taking advantage of the press because they put the statement out there first. They fired the first shot, and they allowed Corey Graves to actually comment on it and call them unprofessional on the air. Now, this whole thing, in my humble opinion, is not only unprofessional for WWE, but they've been doing shit like this for years. It shows how little they care about the wrestlers and the people that put their bodies on the line every single day. It really does show that. When you put out a statement trying to discredit somebody that works for you, when you're trying to slander their name and make them look like that they're divas, that they're hard to work with, when it probably didn't go that way, or even if it did, that's something that should have been handled in private, not aired out, especially on Twitter. I don't really agree with WWE doing that. Now, when it comes to Sasha Banks and Naomi walking out during the show, a part of me believes that's just a crock of shit. Like, I'm sorry, I don't necessarily believe that Naomi would walk out during the show. As professional as she has been, and even showing on Total Divas a little bit of her personality there, in my opinion, I don't think that Naomi would want to have bad blood or burn bridges with anybody. I don't think she ever would. She did everything she could to stay on the right side of good so she can get her name out there. It showed on the show, and it showed her character outside of that. You can tell she really did want to become a star, especially the fact they gave her the opportunity to be a champion. But even though that championship reign was kind of lackluster because, well, they didn't really give her much time, in my opinion, or at least enough time to shine, but I digress. I don't think that Naomi would do something completely unprofessional and burn those bridges because she always wanted to have good professional ties even if she left. That's just the character that I get from her, not only as Trinity Fatu, but also as Naomi. That's what I get from her. I think she's a very class act. She's a classy character. Sasha, she knows her name. She knows her worth, and she knows that she's worth more than the business. Do I think that it could have been Sasha just to walk out like that out of anger? In my humble opinion, I don't know. Now, yeah, it might sound very biased coming from me because I happen to be a very big fan of Sasha Banks. But Sasha, and I've said this in many videos for years, Sasha Banks has outgrown the company. She's ready to go. She's ready to be a Hollywood star. She was in The Mandalorian. She got that taste of Hollywood. And she needs to get out there. She's pretty much achieved everything she could possibly achieve at the age of 30. Her legacy's already set. She doesn't need to be there anymore. She wants to transition out. But I think she has 2 years left on her contract, which in my opinion is like nothing because WWE has no problems in cutting people before their contract is up. And that's what they're heavily criticized for. But with this whole controversy, I'm looking at who fired the first shot, and that happens to be WWE. They put a statement out there and they allowed their commentary to talk about it. That's dirty on every account. I'm sorry. You can't tell me they knew beforehand. You can't tell me that they didn't. Because why would they put it out there and make it into an angle for a brief second? Why would they create all this media buzz over what Sasha and Naomi did, dropping the titles for somebody else to take them and just leave and taking the ball and going home? Yes, I know that Stone Cold Steve Austin did it, but did you hear about it? Let's be honest. This was before the dirt sheets. The dirt sheets were always around, but this is before social media even came to be. Social media didn't begin their rise until the early 2000s. In the 90s, you didn't have stuff like that. You didn't have Twitter. You didn't have Facebook. You didn't have Instagram. You didn't have any of those, any other way to get news out there besides the dirt sheets. And the only way you can find out about the dirt sheets is to buy a magazine or to buy a newspaper or something to find out the information. You didn't have all that back then. But even so, we didn't really hear much about what Stone Cold did until years later. Years after he retired. Did they put it out there? No, because the man made money. Did they put out there all the things that happened between him and Deborah? No, they kept it quiet. It came out years later because he made money. Now, Sasha Banks and Naomi, people are saying, well, it's a racial thing. No, I gotta disagree with that. It may be more of a gender thing than it is a racial thing. Because let's be honest, 2016 was the highlight of the women's division. It was a time when the women's division was outshining the men. It was to the point where the women's division was no longer a bathroom break. You actually sat through these matches because they were that good. But as soon as they gained popularity, they had to be dumbed down a lot. And they had to be ignored a lot. So the men will not be outclassed. But now I'm saying even the men are suffering right now. But I digress in that as well. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother time. I don't believe that Sasha Banks and Naomi didn't have a reason to walk out. Sasha knows her worth. Everybody knows her worth. And it's good for a wrestler to know their worth and know what they're capable of so they can have that, they can actually have that personality and that, I guess not self-identity, but for them to be empowered to go out and get the money they know they deserve. And that's what they have to have. They have to have a good name. Now, with Sasha Banks walking out, I really wouldn't be surprised why. And I'm not really, in my humble opinion, I don't think that what they did was not unwarranted. I don't think what they did was something that, that was just like a small little minor thing. This was probably something that was an issue for years. And I already talked about how generic those belts looked. If you can tell from the WWE Women's Championship when it was brought back, you can look at it and you can tell how much love they put into it and how beautiful it was and how much it showed that these women have earned it. When you see a title, it represents exactly what that person or that division means. The tag team division meant shit for years. It meant absolutely nothing for that company for years. They have been trying to kill off tag teams for years, but the men's are starting to become popular because of RK Bro. The women's hasn't even gotten off the ground. And Bayley and Sasha tried to do that last time, and what happened? They killed that too. Am I surprised with Naomi? Not really. Not really. Do I think that they gave that belt to Sasha as a consolation prize for her not facing Charlotte? Hell yeah, I do. But as for her and Naomi being unprofessional for leaving, in my opinion, I think that that's a lie. Why? Because WWE shot the first shot. And usually the guilty ones are the ones that talk first. They're the ones that usually shoot first and ask questions later. In my opinion, the whole thing is a lie. I don't think that they were unprofessional because I don't think that ever happened. I think that they lied about it, but they were so, petty about them actually having worth about themselves. And if they did walk out, which I believe they did, I really do believe that they walked out before 5 p.m., before the draft was actually put in for the show. The reason why I say that, because Naomi wouldn't do that shit. Naomi would never be professional. She's always wanted to be professional and have good ties and good bridges and strong bridges wherever she goes. It doesn't sound like her to do that. And everybody say, oh, well, she was taken advantage of by Sasha. She's a grown-ass woman, people. She's a grown-ass woman. She can take care of herself. She can look out for her own damn career. She is not a child. She's not freaking 12. She's actually a grown woman. So no, I don't think it has anything to do with influence with Sasha Banks because she's grown. Okay? But I do know that from what I remember from Total Divas, as well as some interviews she has done over the years, she's always wanted to be professional. That's why I think that's a lie. I do not think they walked out before the show started. I think a lot of hearsay started. It got around to the other wrestlers. It got around to fans. So sure, fans will make that assumption. But I'm going by observation from Naomi for years. She has always wanted to be professional. That's why I think the whole thing is a freaking lie. I don't think it ever happened. And I think it was very unprofessional for WWE to put their top stars, well, at least one of them. We know Sasha's a top star. But you put your champions into the dirt and scrub their faces in it. You're honestly throwing them out to the wolves. Just literally throwing them into the mud and just pray that they wallow in it. Like, seriously, that's just dirty. I'm sorry. So for this whole thing with Sasha Banks and Naomi, I think it's good that they know their worth. Do I believe that they walked out during the show? No, I think it's a lie. I don't think they did. But I think that WWE is trying to use social media to teach their wrestlers a lesson. You better do what we say or we're going to ruin you. Good for them for walking out. If all that's true, good for them for walking out. But anyway, y'all, I want to hear what your thoughts are about this entire thing. Do you guys really think that Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out before the show, not before the show started, but walked out during the show, so they will have to change the main event at the last minute? Or do you guys think the entire thing is a lie? Because in my opinion, I think it is. That's just me. But I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know how you feel. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.